Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Alhamdulillah, we have actually covered the formation of the moon last week, which the most accepted theory right now is still a theory, right? That the moon was formed because of a collision between two planets. That is our planet, planet Earth, and another small planet the size of Mars, planet Mars. And it was a glancing heat, a glancing blow. And then after that, the planet's core, right, sink into the Earth core, and then the debris was thrown into the space, and Hasamarate became a ring, and then this ring collide with each other, and later on, after millions of years, they form a solid mass which we call moon, right? And I have already discussed the advantages of the moon, and that the existence of the moon actually is very crucial in giving rise life on Earth. Without the moon, Earth will be almost lifeless. Okay, so Allah SWT created one moon. If there are more than one moon, if there's more than one moon, two moons and more, then life will be the Earth will be very violent place for Earth to form, right? There'll be no bacteria, no plants, no other animals, and it'll be a lifeless planet, but a very violent planet because there are two moons, and these two moons will be tugging each other, right? Pulling here and pulling there, and therefore the Earth crust will be crumpled, and then will be put there. A lot of earthquakes, tectonics. Life will be no chances for life to set foot on Earth. But Allah created only one moon, and this moon create just enough activities on Earth, the tectonic activities on Earth, to make it a very vibrant place for life to set foot upon, right? So it's just a nice balance, subhanallah. So that is the, what they call it, the crucial aspect of the moon. Now, how about the Earth itself? After the collision of the planet Mars, right, the size of that planet Mars with Earth, Earth was still molten, right? There was no solid crust. It was all molten, liquidified, something like that, very, very hot, hundreds of degrees Celsius, maybe 1,000 degrees Celsius, right? And after the heat with the planet, then because of gravitational pull, the Earth formed together, right, into one round sphere, big sphere. And it must be a sphere. It cannot be any other shape because the gravitational pull must be equal to all sides of that. I mean, the radiating of the gravitational pull must be equal. So therefore, the final shape must be a sphere. If it starts with an oval, then the one that is oval will be the one that is being pointed out will be slowly pulled into the core, and ultimately it will form a sphere. If it is a square, then all the corners will, if it's a cube, then all corners, all the sharp corners will be pulled by the gravity of that object until it reaches to that round object, the sphere. So that is why all planets must be a sphere, all stars must be a sphere. You can't find any other non-spherical objects out there in the universe. All celestial objects must be sphere. But if it is small, right? If it is small, it is about smaller than the moon, right? About half size of moon, or maybe a quarter size of the moon. Yes, that object can have any shape that it wants, right? Because the gravitational pull, right, of that object is not strong enough to pull all corners of that object into a round sphere. So that's why you have asteroids with all those shapes, right? Boulders, right? Huge boulders. And that is why the moon of the planet Mars, Phoebus and Deimos, that they were, both of them, they are not really spherical in shape, quite, misshapen in a way, right? It's like a, like an oval thing, something like that, not a spherical thing, because it's small. Both of them are small, okay? But if it is big, right, like the size of the moon, it must be spherical in nature. So Earth, right, after a few million years, it settled down back into that spherical object. But again, right, because it was very hot, and that period of time, right, there were a lot of other debris, objects orbiting around the sun. There were a lot of things. So things were not stable that time, right? Because objects still were being formed because of the gravitational pull of all these objects. They coalesce together, they form an object. So there might be a small object, might be a big object. So during the early period of the solar formation, right, the formation of all these planets, there were a lot of collisions between all these objects, whether big objects or small objects. So Earth was not an exception also. Earth was hit by many, many objects. As it moved around, the sun, right, and all these objects were flying around in space, certainly it will hit Earth. So Earth was bombarded by meteorites for millions of years. Millions, more than half a billion years, means that a few 100 million years, maybe 300, 400 million years, we do not know, but we certainly know that Earth was bombarded by so many meteorites. How do we know that? Because we just look at the moon, right? That is a clear example already. Once we look at, every time we look up to the moon, we can see that evidence of that bombardment of that, all the meteorites and objects during the early formation of the solar system. Because the moon was formed as early as the Earth, right? Almost a few 100 million years after the formation of the Earth, the moon was formed. And you can see the surface of the moon, right, all cratered, so many craters, right? Craters between craters, you have a big crater, then within that big crater, there are small craters, might be one or two, another big craters, but within that second crater, there is a third crater, and it's not impossible within that third crater, there's a third crater, the fourth crater. So it was bombarded by so many objects. That's why the surface of the moon is not smooth, it is cracked. Not because of volcano, but because of all this heating of objects from space. And all these craters remain on the surface of the moon. It did not change. All of them do not change until now. Why? Because the moon is a dead object. It's a dead thing. There is no vibration on its surface. Like Earth, there is an earthquake, there's no moonquake, right? There's no atmosphere, right, to blow all those craters away. There is no water, right, to wash away all those craters that are planet Earth. So therefore, those craters remain. So that is a clear evidence that the start of our solar system was a violent start, right? But what about craters on Earth? Where are those craters on Earth? Those early craters were wiped out. Wiped out why? Because the surface of the Earth was molten. Imagine it's a plastic thing. So a bombardment from an object, it hit, and of course it caused a crater a little bit, and then after, because it's plastic, the crater will collapse, and then it smoothen out each other. Just like, you dig a hole right beside the sea, and then after that, the wave will come and smoothen everything up. So that is basically the dynamic forces that happen during the early formation of the Earth. So that's why you can't find any craters, right, from the early formation of the Earth. Everything has been wiped out clean. Throughout all these 4 billion years of Earth formation, right, because of the activities of the Earth itself, there were earthquakes, there were violent volcanic eruptions, right, and there were waters, there were oceans, and so many things, wind, right? All these agents cause anything that were created during the early part of the Earth creation. All these craters or whatever, they are wiped out. You can't find it anywhere. Okay, so that is why, right? Earth it's a very vibrant place, right? Is a place where it's alive with activities, but just nice for life to form on it. Now, the early part of the Earth formation, right? Scientists or geologists, they broke the history of the Earth into eons. Eon is a very long period of time. and they say that there is what we call as Hadean eon, and then Archean eon, and then Proterozoic eon. Then after that, after the Proterozoic eon, there's a Phanerozoic eon. That is the time when life started to flourish on planet Earth. But all these three early eons or early formation of the Earth, right? The early period of the Earth, the Hadean and Archean and Proterozoic, all these eons, they were devoid of, not totally devoid of life, but devoid of uh, high diversity of life, right? Or higher form of life. Okay? These eons, all these three eons. So we start with the Hadean eons. They call it the Hadean eons from the word Hades. Hades is Hades, right? It is actually a Greek word for hell. And the scientists call this period as the Hadean eon because it was hellish. The condition on the surface was hellish. And it's estimated, right? We can't be exactly sure. It is around maybe 4.5, 4.6 billion. Let's say 4.5 billion years to 3.8 to 3.7 billion years. It might be 3.6 billion years. So plus or minus 1 or 2 billion years, right? So around this period is almost a billion years. The first billion years of Earth formation, right, was filled, these years were filled with meteorites bombardments. And that is the reason why Earth's crust cannot cool down enough to form a solid crust. It was still molten. Why? Because all these meteoric bombardments, when they hit Earth, they release tremendous amount of energy. And this energy, right, caused any crust on Earth's surface that started to solidify. This solidified, almost a solidified crust, to melt. They melted because of the energy released from that bombardments. So we have millions of meteorite bombardments, so there was no chance for Earth crust to solidify enough. And that is why Earth's surface during the first billion years, right, the Earth's surface was molten hot. When you say molten, it means that it is hundreds, at least hundreds of degrees Celsius, might be 1,000 degrees Celsius. Just look at the lava, right? When lava flows from volcanic eruption, what is the temperature of the lava, right? It can be 800 degrees Celsius. It can even reach to 1,000 degrees Celsius. It differs, but it will never be below 100 degrees Celsius. That's for sure, unless it cool down. So how lava was, or how lava is when we observe is so plastic, is moving. That's how you imagine the whole surface of the Earth was covered with that type of what they call it, state, okay, a lava state. And then slowly, right, after a billion years, right, there was the bombardment of the meteorites lessened, because, you know, when Earth started to move around, right, the sun, right, it slowly wiped out, or it slowly cleaned, right, around its orbit any objects that steer in its orbit. So the Earth is moving. If there's any object steering or is in its orbit around the sun, it will absorb it and heat it, and then it goes around again. So any objects there, right, were wiped clean by the Earth. So ultimately, there were lesser and lesser all these objects, meteorites, asteroids out there, right? And therefore, the chances of all these asteroids hitting the Earth were lesser and lesser, and therefore the Earth was hit lesser and lesser amount than the original period when it was first formed. And you know, until now, right, you can see that the occurrence of asteroid hitting Earth is very, very low. There are, of course, you know, objects that hit Earth. The Earth is being constantly bombarded by objects, but those objects, they are very small. They were and they are going to be continuously very small. It's the size of a speck of dust, or it might be the size of a rock. At most, it's the size of a car, or even a double-decker bus. But when it hit Earth at such a great speed, it hit Earth atmosphere first. And that's how Allah protect us, right, with this atmosphere. So when they hit Earth atmosphere at such high speed, they cause very high friction, and friction cause heat. So therefore, there a very high heat being produced by that energy, and this heat actually burn up that boulders or the stones or dust or whatever. And because of that very high heat that destroy that, when it hit Earth, when we see them as a shooting star. So we thought, oh wow, a shooting star. It's actually, right, any objects out there that try to hit Earth. So the bigger the object, the bigger will be the shooting star. I mean, the brighter it will be. But if it reach a certain mass, right, the burning of that object as it goes into the Earth atmosphere will not be sufficient. The burning will not be sufficient to destroy it completely, and therefore whatever left from that burning will reach Earth's surface. So when it reaches Earth's surface, it will create an impact. And when it create an impact, then it will create a crater or will release tremendous amount of energy. One such event occurred in early last century, about 1920 something, no, 1917, 1918, around that. You can Google it up. It's called Tunguska event, where there was this huge explosion that occurred in the Tunguska region. Tunguska region is around Siberia, right? It's a very remote place where covered by snow and far from any civilization, right? So it was a very fortunate thing that it happened in that region, because it produced so much heat, so much sound, that sound was recorded to be heard as far as in European countries, in Germany. Imagine in Germany, it's about, well, more than maybe 5,000 kilometers away, 6,000 kilometers away from Siberia, but that sound could be heard, subhanAllah. So it was a tremendous event. And then after a few months or a few years after that, scientists managed to reach that region and try to investigate what caused it. They saw that all the trees were flattened sideways. So it was not burned, but it was flattened that way. So that was a clear indication that this massive object that came from the sky, right, it disintegrated, exploded while it was in mid-air. It did not reach the Earth, because if it reached the Earth, then there will be a crater, but there was no crater. So it exploded in the air because of so much pressure, so much heat. It exploded in air. So what they call it, the sonic boom, right? All these waves, right, produced by the explosion, right, compress the air, and then it moves, and it's so huge that it flattened all the trees. So it happened, right? It happened. Recently, there was this also a recorded event. Of course, I mean, quite recent. This technology, we have the technology to record, so people use their handphone and record the entrance of an asteroid. It was a huge burning asteroid, right, or meteorite that reached almost the surface of the Earth. It caused a huge explosion. Glasses were shattered, right? The night sky was turned into a day because of that huge explosion. So we are constantly exposed to this rays of boulders coming from the sky. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us in Surah Al-An'am that do you feel safe if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can send down, right, adab from the sky, or cause the pieces of the sky to fall down on you? Who can save you? So Allah mentions that, because this is the thing that all people know from ancient times to now. So anything can happen at any time, right? Asteroids out there flying, and when it reaches Earth and hit down, it goes into the atmosphere, it burns. It's called shooting star. So when it remains intact, it was big enough, right, to remain intact after all those burning, and it hit Earth, it is called a meteorite. So asteroid, starting with asteroid and a shooting star and ends with meteorite. It's just names given by us, right, humans, but it's basically referring to the same thing. right? So it's still happening, but at a lesser occurrence than before. The last huge impact by objects out there in space, asteroids hitting Earth, happened around about 65 million years ago. 65 million years ago, you know, for us it's such a long time, but you look at the age of the Earth, right, it's 4.5 billion years, is 4,500 million years. 65 million years is nothing. 65 compared to 4,500 years. So 65 million years ago, there was this huge asteroid that hit Earth around the region in Mexico. Uh, uh, you know, if you look at the map, Mexico, there is this on the what do you call it? On the eastern part of Mexico, there's the sea. I forgot what's the name of the sea. The Gulf of Mexico, I think. Yeah, the Gulf of Mexico. So that's very near to Mexico, right? I mean, scientists have already extracted that area from space, and from what they have seen from X-rays and radio wave bonds from the bottom of the ocean, they could see a huge crater submerged under the Earth sea. Huge crater, 50 kilometers wide. And this can only be caused by a huge asteroid, right, hitting the Earth. The size of maybe about 13 to 20 kilometers asteroid, you know, that is lesser than Singapore. Singapore is about 45, no? From Jurong to Pasir Ris is about, yeah, it's about 45 to 50 kilometers. Singapore is very small. So it's about a quarter of the size of Singapore, imagine, right? A boulder, an asteroid the size of Tampines plus Bedok plus Pasir Ris, right? And hit Earth. So it disintegrated as much as it could in the Earth atmosphere, but it was so huge that it reached the Earth surface, and with such energy released by that collision that it caused a huge burning of fire that radiated from the impact center and burned everything on its path, and huge amount of dust and stones, not so stones, and dust and earth being I mean thrown into the atmosphere, that for thousands of years, right, the Earth atmosphere was chock full with all this dust and earth that it blocks the sun rays from reaching the Earth. And that actually caused the extinction of many animals, especially the dinosaurs. So the dinosaurs went extinct by this explosion, right, by this collision of that huge asteroid 65 billion years ago. So Allah wiped out these creatures from Earth's surface. And these creatures, mind you, these dinosaurs, they existed on planet Earth for hundreds of millions of years, You know, you have this very famous movie by the name of Jurassic Park. But the name Jurassic is actually taken from the scientist term that scientists gave to a period of time where dinosaurs roamed the Earth. Jurassic was a little bit earlier. Before that, it was Triassic, and then Jurassic, and then after that, Cretaceous era. Right? Then after it was wiped out. Allah wiped out dinosaurs, and then after that, Allah caused the earth to prepare the earth to receive smaller animals and smaller creatures, including us. So if dinosaurs still roam on Earth, we cannot survive. Right? We cannot build civilizations. They were stronger, bigger, huger. We do not even have the opportunity to create technology until we can kill them. No, any technology we try to create will be stamped out by them. They are very, very successful creatures. They've existed for hundreds of millions of years, right? Just look at one of the examples of this. Then, creatures that existed during the time of dinosaur, the cockroach. You know, cockroach have been existing for millions of hundreds of millions of years since the time of the dinosaur. They were not wiped out by the asteroid, the destruction of the dinosaurs, right? They were not wiped out by anything, and they certainly could not be wiped out by us. Whatever we try to kill cockroach, they proliferate. In fact, whatever chemical that we invented to kill them, they will develop ways and means to counter back those chemicals, and those chemicals cannot kill them. So you see all these sprays, right? People invented, right? Kill the cockroach. Yeah, but after maybe 10, 20 years, all these chemicals cannot kill a cockroach. No effect at all. Will cause them dizziness, but will not kill them. So the only way to kill cockroach is just smack them, finish. Right? But you can't wipe out all of this cockroach. They are tough creatures, very, very tough creatures. So you see, those are small creatures. This is an example. So if Allah allow these dinosaurs to remain until now, we cannot survive. We cannot live. We'll be wiped out as soon as we come into what do you call it, into we appear on this planet Earth. So these asteroid bombardments still happen, but at a very, very lesser frequency. When it's going to be the next hit by a huge asteroid on Earth, we do not know. But Allah has given that indication, right? As we increase our technology, we manage to detect and realize that there are, subhanallah, many asteroids that are flying out there and almost hit Earth. Almost hit Earth. You know, China recently, they have this plan to send out thousands of rockets out there to hit this asteroid that's been projected to hit Earth. So that if these rockets hit this asteroid out there in space, it will cause a deviation of its path so much. A little bit deviation is enough, but then that deviation will be sufficient for it to miss the Earth. And all these things, right? We think that we can detect early. Actually, we cannot. Sometimes we only detect them when they are very close to us, as close as, you know, the distance from Earth to the moon. And some of them pass through between the Earth and the moon. You know how near miss it was to the Earth. It passed through between the Earth and the moon. It's like, imagine, you know, you're shooting a gun, right, from aeroplane to a small coin, right, small coin on Earth's surface. And that bullet, right, just a little bit miss that, what do you call it, that coin. A little bit, you know, if you move your finger a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, it will surely hit that coin. That is how near miss it was. You know, this vastness of space, Earth is just a speck, but this asteroid is moving right close, grazing the surface of that speck. That is an indicator, right, that we can be hit by objects from space anytime that Allah wants it to hit. In fact, there are a lot of other objects out there flying. We do not know how big they were or they are. What are their orbits? Will they hit Earth or not? Until it's quite late. Some of these asteroids, we actually the astronomers already calculated they could see, right, all these objects, and then they calculated the orbit, and from that calculation they projected that this object will hit Earth in certain years, right, in certain years in the future, right? But that is just an estimate. For example, there is an asteroid flying out there. The trajectory from its trajectory is orbit around the sun. The astronomers calculated that it will probably hit Earth in 2060 something, 2063, 64. Probably it will hit Earth. He said probably because there's no exact science. Because in between, right, now to 2065, anything can happen. Right, there will be another object that hit it, or another planet that will pass by. We pass by planet Venus or whatever that caused disturbance to its trajectory because of gravitational pull and gravitational push, and then it will certainly change its trajectory and will not hit Earth. So there's no certainty that whatever objects has been calculated out there will hit Earth. So if you read any reports, right, in the internet that, oh, well, an asteroid is going to hit Earth in certain years and 20 something or whatever, and then you say, okay, that is indicator that it's going to be Qiyamah during that time. Forget about that. Number one, nobody knows when Qiyamah will come, right? Certainly not astronomers, certainly not scientists. Number two, all right, these are all probable calculations. Anything can happen in between. It's just like, you know, weather. We are forecasting the weather. We can forecast weather in 2 hours time and it's almost as accurate as it was, or as according to the prediction. 2 hours is still okay. But if you want to predict the weather of Singapore, for example, next week, 7 days time, next Monday, that is just a probability, and the probability is reduced. There might be a 20% chance of rain, 30% chance of rain. There might also be no rain at all. So it's just estimate, right? And the estimate, as further you are in the future, you estimate, the lower will be the probability. So therefore, all these calculations are probability. Ultimately, we do not know, right, when Allah will cause an object to hit the earth until it's very late. But we certainly know, we certainly know that at the end of time, Qiyamah, right, one of the effects of Qiyamah that Allah mentions in the Quran, in what do you call it, in Surah Takwir and Surah Infitar, right? And Surah Inshiqaq also, that the sky, right, will fall on earth. For example, in Surah Takwir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا النُّجُومٌ كَدَرَتْ. And when, so وَإِذَا النُّجُومٌ تَثَرَتْ, when you see all the stars will start to fall down on earth. And in Surah Infitar also, وَإِذَا النُّجُومٌ كَدَرَتْ, and everything will fall on earth. This nujum, Allah used the word nujum to refer to those objects out there that you can see. So anything that we can see means it is bright, that is nujum, right? Whether it's fixed or it's moving is another thing, but it's nujum out there, kawakib and nujum. So all these things will fall on earth. Allah used the word nujum and Allah used the word kawakib. In Surah Al-Fitar, Allah used the word kawakib. وَإِذَا كَوَاكِبٌ تَثَرَتْ. So all these things will fall on earth. So at the end of time, earth will be destroyed as how it was formed very early on. Very early on, 4.5 billion to 3 billion years ago, earth was bombarded by millions of asteroids and meteorites. And also towards the end of time, earth will be bombarded by thousands. We do not know how many, but we can say maybe thousands of those asteroids bombarding us, and there you go, all the civilizations on earth will be wiped out, all life on earth will be wiped out, and earth, when it's being bombarded by all these things, right, that how it was created, that's how it will end. Allah SWT mentions in the Quran, Kama bada'na, what is it? Like how it began, it will end. I cannot recall the exact verse. How it began, it will end. Kama bada'akum ta'udun. How you begin and that's how you're going to return back. That is for human beings, but earth is also like that. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions about this universe. That how it began, it will end. يوم نطوي السماء كطي السجل للكتب كما بدأنا أول خلق نعيده, and that is the verse in Surah Az-Zumar. يوم نطوي السماء, the day when we will fold the universe. It can mean the universe, it can mean our atmosphere. Both are valid interpretation. يوم نطوي السماء, we will fold the sky, we will fold the universe, we will fold the atmosphere, like how a book is being closed. So you have a book open, it's closed, and that's how the universe is going to be closed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the big crunch, right? This universe starts with a big bang, and everything is expanding, and then we stop expanding, and then we start to contract by its gravitational pull until it will collapse back to how it began in the studies called it a big crunch, and collapse back to a small point. كَمَا بَدَأْنَا أَوَّلَ خَلْقٍ نُعِيدُ. Like how we began the creation, that's how we're going to end the creation. So how Earth was formed, 4.5 to 3 billion, will be all those meteorite bombardments and the plasticity of the Earth surface. There's no solid surface, everything is molten, moving, this and that. That is how Earth will end, with all these bombardments of meteorites, and cause the surface of the Earth, right, violent events on Earth, right, explosions, tremendous amount of energy that's being released, and burning of all everything, and the Earth atmosphere will be covered by dust, right, by ash, where all those things burn on Earth's surface, so much so that the light of the sun will be extinguished. We cannot see the sun. It's going to be very, very dark. And Allah mentions it in the first verse of Surah Takwir. إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ. When the sun is being folded, means the light of the sun is going to be folded. Like how you fold things, right? And that thing disappears. That's how the sun will be folded. It means that the light of the sun will be extinguished. It's either really being extinguished or extinguished from our vision. We cannot see it, or the people on Earth during that time, right, cannot see the sun because it's going to be blocked by all those burning forests or whatever, right, on the Earth's surface. And still, all this asteroid will come hitting the Earth. And if it hits the Earth ocean during the early part of the Earth formation, right, 4.5 billion. So there was no ocean, there was no water, but now we have tremendous amount of water, 3/4 of the Earth covered by water. So if these asteroids hit water, right, imagine the size of the tsunami that we produced. Imagine you drop a huge stone, right, on a small pond. What's going to happen to the surface, to the water in that pond? We create huge waves, right, violent waves. And so imagine a huge boulder drop on the Pacific Ocean or even the South China Sea. It will create a huge tsunami, and this huge tsunami will swarm the surface of the Earth, will swarm the land, and the land will disappear under this huge tsunami. And water will start pouring, the water from the ocean will start pouring into land, and you have land being covered by this huge wave, and not just one wave, tremendous amount of waves, not just one, many waves. And in the end, right, water will win over the land. And Allah mentions this, subhanallah, in Surah Fujirat, وَإِذَا الْبِحَارُ فُجِّرَتْ. And when all these oceans of water Fujirat will not boil over, but will cover everything else, will bubble up and cover everything else. And Allah mentions all these are what? All these are scenarios that Allah paints for us, Allah describes for us, for us to imagine, right, what's going to happen towards the end of time. And that can only happen if, let's say, there is a lot of meteorite bombardments on Earth's surface. And when that happens, of course, right, Earth will be, the water will be boiled over because of tremendous amount of energy that's been produced, right? Heat will be over-consuming the Earth, right? Ocean will boil over from the heating of all these asteroids, and also from the cracking of the Earth's surface. Imagine if it's like Earth's surface, the crust is like the shell of an egg. It's very thin, it's very fragile, right? You hit it hard, then we have cracks. And we have cracks, and then we have this the internal part of the Earth, the internal part of the egg, the liquid part will seep through. That's basically what's going to happen on Earth. If you hit Earth a lot, right, with these huge boulders, you will crack the surface of the Earth. And what's going to seep through those cracks? Lava, molten lava. Because under the Earth is molten lava. So this molten lava, if it seeps through cracks under the Earth ocean, it is just like boiling the Earth ocean under its on its bottom of the ocean. All these things will boil the ocean, and ultimately, with the heat on top, right, from all the heating of these asteroids and from the seeping through of the lava under the Earth ocean, the ocean is going to be boiled over from both heat top to the bottom, and easily it's going to bubble up. And Allah mentions this in Surah Takwir towards the end of time. وَإِذَا الْبِحَارُ سُجِّرَتْ, and when all the oceans, right, these oceans will be boiled over. Boil, how can you boil oceans? Right? You can only boil oceans if the bottom of the oceans are all open up and the lava will flow and all the heat from the top, right, boil the surface of the ocean itself, and everything will boil up and Earth will be barren. And all these gases, all this water vapor will form into the, will accumulate in the Earth atmosphere and produce huge clouds, thick clouds that cannot fall back on Earth through rain because everything is so hot, right? And therefore, everything will be vaporized. So this cloud will remain there with all the dust, and it's going to be very, very dark on Earth's surface. This is going to be the fate of the Earth, right? Kama bada'na awwala khalqin nu'idu. Like how we begin creation, it is how we're going to end those creations. So 4.53 billion years ago, there was a lot of bombardments of meteorites. It might be, some scientists say that it might be these meteorites, they carry water or H2O. And so many of these meteorites, when it hit Earth, therefore it caused water to form on planet Earth. But some scientists said, no, that's not true. Why? Because if that is true, then you can find water on other planets, Mars or Venus, right? But we can't find water on planet Mars, or we can't find water on planet Venus as of now. What about Moon? We can't find Moon. If Moon is being hit by all those asteroids and the asteroids carry H2O, yes, you know, people have discovered H2O on asteroids. H2Os, diamonds, oil, all these precious things, right? Iron on asteroids. So if Moon also was bombarded by all these H2O carrying asteroids, then there will be water on Moon's surface, but there's no water. Then those scientists counter back. They say that so the Moon is very small, so whatever water vapor that was formed early on, it will certainly evaporated and lost to space. And Mars too. See, Mars is a planet with an atmosphere, but Mars is now dry and barren, not a single molecule of H2O on its surface. But there are a lot of evidences from Mars surface that show that very, very early on, billions of years ago, might be 3 billion years ago, 2.5 billion years ago, there were tremendous amount of water on Mars surface. How do we know? Because there are canyons and also valleys that can only be crafted by flowing water. So it is as if there were rivers on planet Mars, right? And these rivers retain its shape but no water. So what happened to all those water? Well, Mars gravity is weak because it's very small. So over time, billions of years, all this water, right, they were lost in space, evaporated, and Mars gravity cannot retain back its water vapor, and so it was lost to space. And that's why Mars became barren. But Earth is big enough, right, to retain water, but not bigger than what is necessary so that the water cannot form water vapor. Because if Earth is bigger than its size, let's say 1.5 times bigger or 2 times bigger than its current size, of course gravity will be stronger, 2 times stronger, then there will be less water vapor in the atmosphere, and there will be therefore less rain falling down, and so therefore there will be less fresh water around, right? Because fresh water can only be produced by rain, evaporation. So Allah created Earth just nice with its size. This is called the Goldilocks phenomena, or Goldilocks enigma. How come scientists still struggling to understand how come the Earth is being created just nice for everything, for us to survive on it, for humans to live on it, right? For animals and creatures, and you can't find the same factors on other planets. We're going to cover in detail about this, we call it as the Goldilocks Enigma towards the end of my lecture, which is on the 7th chapter or 6th chapter on the topic on the 7th Earth, right? And we have covered 7 universes, 7 heavens. The last chapter of my book will be on 7 Earth. I will go into detail on that. But it's sufficient to know that Earth creation, right, is so fine-tuned so that we can exist on Earth. So much coincidence. If you talk about coincidence, and scientists believe in coincidence, so much coincidences happening during the early formation of the Earth that caused Earth to be livable, right? Teem with life. Without any of these coincidences, life on Earth cannot exist. Now, if one coincidence happened, then it's a coincidence. If let's say 100 coincidences happen, it must be a deliberate action. You toss a coin. Say no. Let's say you throw a dice, right? 6, number 6. Second throw, number 6 is coincidence. Third throw, wow, lucky, number 6 also. Still coincidence. But if throw 100 times all number 6, something is wrong somewhere. It's a deliberate effort to cause it to appear number 6. So you have to investigate it. It's not something that's coincidence for scientists, right? It's not probability anymore. It's certainty. You even throw 1,000 times, it will be number 6. So it's a deliberate action, just like the Earth. So much coincidence happening that it cannot, it's very difficult for us to say that all this happened by chances. The chance cannot repeat itself many, many, many times. So that is what's happening. Not just Earth, but the universe itself, right? To the point that scientists have this term, they call it the anthropic principle. The anthropic principle means that this universe at large in general, and this Earth in particular, they are so fine-tuned to produce life on Earth that we cannot run away from the fact that it could be a deliberate attempt, right, to create this universe in such manner so that life can exist. So much coincidences, right? But, you know, scientists being scientists, some of them, they don't believe in God, so they try to find certain other explanations. So they said, well, this is part and parcel of evolution on the universal scale. It means that there were millions and billions of universes being created, parallel universes being created. And so by chance, there must be one universe out of 1,000 million universes that can suit life. But all these are speculations, right? They seek a difficult answer, whereas we Muslims, we go for the simple answer. And that simple answer is what? If this universe is so fine-tuned, this Earth is so fine-tuned, then it is a deliberate attempt, right, to create such a universe, such an Earth. If it is a deliberate attempt, there must be a doer for that, an agent doing it. And that agent must be a very powerful agent that can create this universe and shape this universe and set down laws in this universe, right, that can give rise to us and all this gravity. So this agent must be so powerful, we call this agent God. As simple as that. What more you want, right? Who is God? God is that agent that created and fine-tuned this universe. And what more about this God or this agent? If you want to know more about this God that creates or caused the creation of this existence of this Earth and this universe, so fine-tuned universe, if you want to know more about this agent or this God, go explore Islam. Learn about Islam, what Islam taught people about this God. Don't look for the nature and character of this agent, this supreme or powerful agent in other religions, because they are not complete. All other religions, they give human characters to God and even physical shape to God, but not Islam. Islam is a very pure monotheistic religion, You can't imagine anything remotely close to God. We can only know this agent that caused this existence of this fine-tuned universe, right? Through what that agent inform us. We can't reach that agent through our own mind. We cannot understand, we cannot fathom that agent through our own mind. We only know that agent through what that agent inform us, and that is God, and that is the God of Islam. So all this boils down to that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, right, in the Quran, in Surah Rum, sanurihim ayatina fil afaqi wa fi anfusihim hatta yatabayyana lahum annahu al-haq. We will show to them our signs in every horizon and corners until they realize that this Quran, this religion is the truth. See? So it is only when people rejected this truth with their heart closed, then Allah SWT will not give them guidance. Okay, so we have covered the Hadean Eon and all whatever things that we can be subscribed to Hadean Eon, inshallah. Then after that, next week we'll move on to the Archean Eon. Okay, so we'll stop here and let's see if there is, subhanallah, there are questions. Let's see. Whoa, so many questions, right? Okay, let's see. The first question is, what, Superman is born? I don't know what you mean by that, Superman is born. Salam Ustaz, as mentioned in the Quran, earth will be destroyed during Qiyamah. Mountains will be like cotton, wool, then we will gather in Padang Mahsyar. Can you explain about this? That is, if the earth is destroyed, where is exactly Padang Mahsyar? It's still on earth or somewhere else? Very good question. And the answer is already been given by Allah SWT in the Quran. Allah SWT says, on that day, يَوْمَ تُبَدَّلُ الْأَرْضُ غَيْرَ الْأَرْضِ وَالسَّمَاوَاتِ وَبَرَزُوا لِلَّهِ الْوَاحِدِ الْقَهَّارِ. Not mistaken, in Surah Ra'ad. On that day itself, the earth will be replaced by another earth. تُبَدَّلُ الْأَرْضُ غَيْرَ الْأَرْضِ. This earth will be replaced by another earth. وَالسَّمَاوَاتِ, and also the heavens will be replaced by another heaven. So we're going to stand on a different earth, much similar to our earth. Gravitational pull might be the same or might not be the same, we do not know, right? Because there's nothing impossible for Allah SWT to change this and that, to change the parameters and this and that, right? But it's going to be a different place, right? And different universe. Because on that day itself, that Allah SWT will peel off, will open the sky, and then people on that Padang Mahsyar, right, will be able to see heaven and hell. And those who receive their books from their right hand, when they're being shown hell, they will be so relieved and happy. Alhamdulillah. Amin ya Rabbal Alameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among these people. They'll be so happy and relieved that Allah has saved them from that horrible, horrible, horrible place. But then those people who have received their book from their left or the back, na'udhu billah min dhalik, they are condemned to hell. They know they're going to be the citizens of hell, residents of hell. And then when Allah open up, right, the sky, and they will see heavens, they will see the paradise, it will add to their despondence, their sadness, their stress, whatever negative words you want to use, right? Because they know they've wasted their life on this earth, right? Instead of going to that very, very beautiful, wonderful place, they're going to decide to go to that horrible, horrible, horrible place. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from being among these people. Amin ya Rabbal Alameen. So that is going to happen in the Padang Mahsyar. Another question is, the scenarios of Qiyamah mentioned in Quran that you describe is very scary. Will humans be alive to watch such scenarios happening? Yes, humans will still be alive. That's why Rasulullah SAW said, if you want to know, if you want to see Qiyamah as if you're seeing with your own eyes, go and read these 3 surah. Surah Takwir, Infitar, and Inshiqaq. And these are the scenarios that I painted and took from those 3 surahs. Of course, the other surah like Surah Zalzala and so forth. Right? But these 3 surahs painted quite a detailed picture. There will be humans, but those humans will be non-Muslims. Because towards the end of time, there will be no more Muslims. When there are no more Shahada on earth, there will be no more humans that recognize the existence of Allah. There will be no more Adhan. There will be no more Kaaba. Kaaba will be destroyed long before. right? No more Kaaba, and Medina will be abandoned, right? The Prophet ﷺ said that during that time, Medina will be so much abandoned that there will be shepherds coming in, right? Covered with sand dunes, this and that. And that is the fate of Masjid Nabawi later on. That is after Dajjal. That is after Nabi Isa alayhi salam. So those people that live during that time, they will be the worst of generations. That's why Allah reserved these horrible scenarios for them. Because as time progresses on, right, humans, the generations will be worse off. Our generation is worse than the generation before us. And the generation before us is worse than the generation before them. And that's progressively going down, right? Of course, there are, small pockets of betterments, but in general, everything is going down. Another question is, which was created first, the earth or Syurga or Neraka? Syurga and Neraka, they are metaphysical creatures, beings. And a metaphysical universe was created first. Then after that, the physical universe, and our earth, right, resides in the physical universe. So that answers your question already. The Quran, the word kawakib in Quran sometimes translated as stars and sometimes planets. Which is the more accurate? It can be both. It can be both. But the Arabs, when they look at wandering stars, because when you look up, there are stars that are fixed, and there are stars that are moving, right? Moving from day to day. So it's moving with the backdrop of the fixed stars. So these moving stars, they call it as kawkab. Whereas the fixed stars, they call it as nujum. Okay, so the kawakib, right? We can refer them to the planets also, because the wandering stars are actually the planets. They can also be the asteroids, because they're also moving. But it's interchangeable, right? Yeah, that is the answer. Does shooting stars have to do with shaitans dropping on the malaikat in the sky? Now, it's a very good question, right? Allah SWT mentions a number of times in the Quran. And in fact, in Surah Jinn, right? In Surah Jinn, Allah SWT says that the jinns, they said, when we try to eavesdrop the conversations among the malaikats, right, we will be chased by a ball of fire that was going to burn us. That is in Surah Jinn. So what is this ball of fire? It can be out there, right? Not on the Earth atmosphere. It can be out there in space, wherever it is, we do not know. But it can also be on the Earth atmosphere. It can be that the genes, like us, are trapped on Earth. They cannot go beyond Earth. They cannot go beyond Earth. Like they do not have the technology to go beyond Earth, right? It might be, right? When Rasulullah SAW did his Mi'raj, the jinn, what is his name? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Doesn't come to me, right? Ifrit. The jinn Ifrit tried to follow Rasulullah SAW and Malaikat Jibril going up, ascend the heavens, but he was destroyed by the asteroids. Destroyed by fire. So it might be that Ifrit and all others, they are trapped on Earth. They are the creatures of Earth. So if you go to the moon, right, there'll be no genes. If you go to planet Mars, there'll be no genes. Probably, or they might follow us also, right? Because wherever we go, we have our personal Qarin. Then it's the gene also that goes together with us. All right. So we can't answer that because all these are metaphysical questions that there's no answer from physical world. So it might be that they try to eavesdrop, right, those conversations through Earth atmosphere, because angels reside in another universe, metaphysical universe, not in this physical universe. And this metaphysical universe, right, the door to it can be anywhere on this physical universe. It can be on planet Mars. It can be on planet Earth. It can be on Earth's surface also. We do not know, right? So the door to the metaphysical universe can be anywhere. So it can be on the earth atmosphere, and when they try to eavesdrop, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send down all these blinding fires, right, that hit them, it might be that. So there is no definite answer for that shooting stars lah. Okay. All right, so I answered that question already, so no more questions, alhamdulillah. So inshallah, we're going to continue next week. There will be no class. It's going to be the eve of Hari Raya. You know, eve of Hari Raya, we all want to huri-huri, makan ketupat and so forth. So we're going to meet again the week after that, which is on the 24th of July. Okay, so inshallah, Selamat Hari Raya to all, right? And have a very blessed 10 days or 9 days of Zulhijjah. And may Allah SWT accepts all our ibadah. May Allah SWT give us the opportunity to fast on the day of Arafah, which is on the 9th of Zulhijjah, and probably on the 8th of Zulhijjah, which is going to be on Sunday, inshallah. Amin ya rabbal alamin. Wallahu a'lam bishawab. We end with tasbih kafara and surah al-asr. Subhanaka wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus solihat wa tawassaw bil haqq wa tawassaw bis sabr. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.